All right, let's talk about something so many companies are going through right now, even if they don't have a name for it: the journey to multi-cloud. You know, it usually feels a bit chaotic, kind of unplanned, and honestly a little messy. But what if I told you that chaos actually has a pattern? We're going to uncover the 4 common paths that explain how so many of us end up here. Just think about your own company for a second. Did you all sit down in a room and map out a grand strategy to use AWS, Azure, and GCP? Or did you just sort of wake up one day and find yourselves there? For most people, it's definitely the second one. It feels like a total accident, right? Just a bunch of small decisions that kind of snowballed. But here's the thing. That accidental journey, it's not as random as it looks. Turns out pretty much every company is unknowingly following one of 4 very distinct archetypal paths. 4 common stories that explain exactly how you got to where you are today. So let's kick things off with the most common one of all, the one I like to call the opportunistic leap. This is that classic bottom-up story of multi-cloud. It never starts with a big strategy meeting. Nope. It starts with a single team trying to solve a single problem. The triggers are always super tactical. Maybe a data science team really needs an AI tool that's only on Google Cloud. Or, hey, a new web app is just way easier for your developers to build on Azure. It's like death by a thousand small, totally logical cuts. Each decision makes perfect sense at the time, but when you add them all up, you've created this brand new, really complex reality without even realizing it. And this is where the tech problems start to bleed over into people problems. You've got fragmented identity management, which leads directly to inconsistent governance. You have all these separate networks, and suddenly your costs are all over the place. And of course, the team that's expert in one cloud has a major skills gap when another one pops up. The 2 sides are totally linked. So if this sounds like you, your number 1 priority is to stop the bleeding. Seriously. Before you try to fix anything else, you have to get a baseline for governance. What are our absolute minimum security rules? How are we going to manage who has access to what? How do we even track what we're spending? You've got to create a unified rulebook before you can even start playing the game right. Okay, let's move on to the second path. This one has even less to do with choice. I call this the M&A inheritance. In this situation, you don't choose multi-cloud, you acquire it. Literally, your company buys another one, and guess what? Congratulations, you now own their entire cloud setup too. Yeah, the driver here is a business event, plain and simple. The deal gets signed, and on Monday morning, the tech leadership suddenly realizes their perfectly clean, single cloud world is now a mashup of 2 completely different environments, with different tools, different standards, and different teams. This path really highlights a critical truth. The biggest challenge is often the culture, not the technology. Yeah, you have to figure out how to connect 2 different networks, but you also have to figure out how to merge 2 completely different engineering cultures. How do you get 2 teams with opposite ideas about security to agree? It's just as much about people and process as it is about platforms. The very first step here is, well, it's brutally simple, but it is absolutely essential. You have to figure out what you just bought. You need to do a complete and total inventory of every single cloud asset you've just inherited. You just can't secure it, you can't manage it, and you certainly can't budget for it if you can't see it. So first, you map the territory. Then you can make your plan. Our third journey is another one where the decision is basically made for you. But this time, it's not by your CEO, it's by a regulator or maybe even a government. This is the compliance mandate, where the external rules are what force your hand. Think about data sovereignty laws, like GDPR over in Europe. Those laws might say that customer data has to physically stay inside a certain country's borders. Well, what if your main cloud provider doesn't have a data center there? You've got no choice. You have to use a second regional provider. All of a sudden, your whole architecture is being dictated by lawyers. So the core challenge here becomes this constant tug of war. How in the world do you maintain one single global standard when you also have to deal with all these unique local exceptions? It almost always leads to expensive duplication of your infrastructure and needing to find people with specialized skills in every single region just to manage the local rules. So to get a handle on this, the best first move is to build a global compliance framework. Now, this isn't one single set of rigid rules. Think of it more like a master template. It defines your core non-negotiable security and operational stuff, but it's designed to be flexible so you can add on local rules to meet those specific regional needs. And that brings us to our final archetype. This is the one everybody thinks they're on, or at least wishes they were on, the deliberate design. This is multi-cloud as a conscious, proactive, strategic choice right from day one. Here, it's all about playing the long game. You're actively trying to avoid getting locked into one single vendor. You're building an architecture so tough it can survive an entire cloud provider going down. Or maybe you're designing for ultimate flexibility, so you can move workloads to whichever cloud is the cheapest or fastest at any given moment. But hold on, don't make the mistake of thinking deliberate means easy. This path is incredibly difficult. It requires a massive upfront investment, a huge commitment to upskilling the entire organization, and this fanatical focus to build a central control plane that can manage the whole thing. And that is exactly why the most important first step here isn't technical at all. It's not. Before you write a single line of code, you have to build a rock-solid business case. Why are we doing this? What specific business outcome are we trying to achieve? And how are we going to measure success? Without that clarity, these massive projects almost always collapse under their own weight. Okay, so we've just walked through 4 very different journeys: the opportunistic leap, the M&A inheritance, the compliance mandate, and the deliberate design. Let's try to pull all this together. When you step back and look at the big picture, it really boils down to one key difference. These 4 paths fall into 2 main camps: reactive and proactive. For the reactive journeys, that's the leap and the inheritance, multi-cloud is something that happens to you. Your main goal is just to gain control and integrate the chaos. But for the proactive journeys, the mandate and the design, multi-cloud is either a requirement or a strategy. Your focus is all about deliberate execution and adaptation. Just knowing which path you're on is the most powerful first step you can take. It tells you what your biggest challenges are probably going to be and what your first move should be. So take a look at the map we've laid out and ask yourself that one simple question: which path are you on? Because that answer changes everything. Thanks for joining me.